so today we're going to talk about the Eclipse Development Process 101. So it's like a crash course for you guys to understand why we have the processes that we have and how to move your project through the workflow of the Eclipse development lifecycle. My name is Teresa Delgado. I am the open source community manager of the Eclipse Foundation, and I work for Wayne Beaton's team.
Thank you very much.
It was here, sorry.
Yeah, it was for the recording.
Okay, basically I take care of projects since they come to the foundation. I work together with project teams to refine project proposals. I help you get your proposal open for the community review. I help you create your project. I help you start the incubation phase. And after you are a stable open source project, I also guide you a little bit through the life cycle development process. So let's get right into it. This is the agenda for today. We'll start with what is an Eclipse project, because sometimes there is some confusion there with what is an Eclipse project or a GitHub project or software project. So what is an Eclipse project? It's our main operational unit for open source software development at the foundation, and it has a team of committers, right, and a set of resources that you get for coming to the foundation, and that you use to implement the scope and the goals of your project. The Eclipse project conforms to the EDP, which is the Eclipse Development Project development process, and this is the acronym that we often use, thinking that everyone will, get to know what these acronyms are. So if there is anything that you don't know regarding to acronyms, please just raise your hand, and I will be glad to explain what is that. So an Eclipse project implements EDP and Eclipse IP policy, calls itself an Eclipse project, and conforms to our foundation branding guidelines, and is aligned with one and only one top-level project. So what is the Eclipse development process? The Eclipse development process is a framework that we provide and defines the open source rules of engagement and the structure, the governance structure, and relevant definitions for your project lifecycle, and all the relationships and roles that are created in the Eclipse ecosystem. This framework for project lifecycle management defines how we go through the release and reviews and how the project should interact with the community and within itself. So why is it so important that the EDP is based on the open source rules of engagement? These three rules, transparency, openness, and meritocracy, are the ones that will guarantee that we'll offer some vendor neutrality for you to bring your project to the Eclipse Foundation. So when we mean transparent, it means that everything is done in the open and is easily accessible. So not just coding, communication, all things that are related to the project and happening and are transparent for the community. Anyone can find whatever it is that you're doing or planning to do with your project. And when we talk about openness, what we mean is that you should work as a project team to have an equal playing field for anyone that wants to participate and contribute to your project. Finally, meritocracy is also a very important principle of this development process, because the only way to earn your status at the Eclipse Foundation as a committer or as a project lead or PMC member is by merit. So everything is done by merit. Okay, these three things allow us to be vendor neutral. It means that everyone is welcome, even competitors, and this is one of our, I guess, our great advantage or added value, because you get to sit on the table with your competitors and work on a vendor neutral platform, okay? For you to be able to do this, we offer a set of resources and services when you create your project at the foundation. So all of the things that you're seeing there, all the IT infrastructure and other services that are not listed there, but yeah, that's what we give you. And we also make sure that committers are encouraged and sometimes enforced to work in the open. So you cannot trick us into, committing your things to a private repository and then push a bunch of things into the open source project. That is not really the way this works. Okay, so project roles, most of you are probably familiar with this. We have the core of our community, as you might know, are the committers. Committers have all the power of their project. They decide what goes into the project. They decide the project plan. They basically accept contributions from contributors, which is basically anyone who wants to make a change or add something to your project. And most of the time, these committers are employed by companies, and these companies are sitting at the same table in working groups, right? Like I said before, we provide a set of IT resources. We are currently using GitLab and GitHub, and we were using Gerrit for some time, but that's going to be encouraged not to use anymore. And let's say this Eclipse project is under the umbrella of a top-level project, like I said before, and this top-level project has a program management committee, which is a set of people that are in charge of the governance and the oversight of the project. They are the ones that are supposed to make sure that you follow the open source rules of engagement at all times in your project lifecycle. Behind the PMC, there is the EMO, this mysterious organization that you don't know who it is. It's basically Wayne and myself and Sean and Sharon. So it's just people like you. We don't bite. So please do ask your questions. Send your questions to emo@eclipsefoundation.org or directly to us if you already know who we are. The idea is that we help PMC or committers or contributors or even working groups solve grievances, and we provide support whenever you need it. Like Wayne said before, our goal is to help you be a successful open source project. So that's really why we're here. And sometimes when you will see that we need to request approval of EMO Ed, who is that? That's Mike. That's just Mike. So he's a really nice guy. This means it is usually a formality, but it is not, because he actually takes the time to read your project proposals and go through the things that we need him to approve. Okay, that's it. That's all the background you needed. Let's go to the project phases. So Eclipse open source projects go through different phases. There is one dark pre-proposal phase that happens between project teams, and this is confidential. We can see what you're doing, but we usually don't. So we take a look sometimes to see if there are project proposals that seem like they're in a good shape, but you still haven't contacted us, to make sure that you're not missing the click on the EMO, send email, and contact this organization to open your proposal to the public. This happens more often than you would believe, so that's why we take a peek. But that happens, that's confidential. When that is happening, your proposal is not open to the public. And when you think you are in the right time or in the right shape to become a public proposal, then that's when you click on the green or orange box at the top of your project proposal page, and you say, send email to EMO to open your proposal to the public. Once this happens, we will get an email, and we will get in touch with you. We'll review your proposal, and we'll help you fill in the blanks that you might have. So if you don't have a complete proposal, that's fine. We can help you figure out whatever it is that you need to complete your proposal. Oh, sorry. After that, we start the proposal phase, and we set up everything. So we arrive to the date of the creation review where your project is actually created. Resources are provisioned, committers are sent, paperwork is sent to committers, everything kind of starts working, right? Once everything is done, your project is already on the incubation phase, where it will stay there until you prove that you have a mature relationship with your community and that your project is stable enough. That happens usually after a graduation review. It's nothing to be scared of. You have to just prove that you're a stable, mature project. But it's usually combined with a regular release review. I will talk more in a minute about that. So I wanted to deep dive a little bit in the creation process, because I know that when you come to the foundation with a new project, you usually have so many questions, and you might get the feeling that the process is very complicated. You sometimes are afraid of, initiating this process. It's not that complicated, okay? This is basically what happens. You will see this image on our GitLab tickets. We're using GitLab to track project creations. And what happens is that after we go through the project proposal phase, where we interact privately with the project team and we get Mike's approval to open the proposal to the public, we actually make this open for community review, and then a 2-week period start. And this is where we inform the PMC of the top-level project that you have selected, that the project intends to be a part of this top-level project. We gather community feedback. We initiate a trademark search to secure the project name. We help you identify your architecture council mentor if you haven't already. We do a license check if you feel like choosing something other than EPL 2.0. And we finalize all the contents that are, left a little bit immature in the proposal. A few things that we look at when we get a proposal is that it has a very well-defined scope. This is one sentence that we use to promote the project through different communication channels and internally. So it's really important that it's a strong phrase, a strong scope, well-defined. And we also want to have like an elevator pitch kind of description of your project. That will become the presentation card of your project on the PMI, which stands for Project Management Infrastructure, when we actually create the project. So these two fields are very important, and we also take some closer look to the listed committers, okay? There is really not a magic number there because it depends on the context, but it's usually more than 2. That's a quick tip I will give you. And okay, like I said before, to submit a proposal, there's no button you click at the PMI. You need to send an email to the EMO. So once this is done, community review period starts, and we gather all the requirements that are missing to get ready for the project creation, right? So missing pieces, license check, trademark check, I already talked a little bit about this. We need to wait a couple of weeks. It has been defined as a minimum time by the Eclipse Development Process to complete this community review, and then we need an extra week for the creation review, where the contents of the project proposal are final and they are locked. So you cannot modify your proposal anymore, and that's the time where you sit and you wait to see if you receive some pushback or some encouragement from the community, or sometimes just nothing. Most of the times. That's a good sign, actually. So we're using GitLab. We're using GitLab to track the status of project creations and to track the overall development cycle of your project. And this is, these are a few things that are tools that are available for you and for myself. Take into consideration that we created these issues for EMO to keep track of the processes, right? But we've added these labels and we've added these checklists so you know where we are at any time. So we're using labels to identify what is missing from a review, and we're using scope labels so you are able to orient yourself very fast in the proposal phase or the project phase you are in. Scope labels, you can use just only one at the time. So that's where your project is at some point. We're also using the due date field as the next time that an action will take place, or the EMO, meaning myself or Wayne Beaton, will get in touch with you. We'll check in with the project and see what's the status of things. And you will find a very long checklist of mostly PMO or PMC actions that we need to complete in order to get you ready for project creation, review, graduation, termination, whatever it is that you are aiming to do, okay? We have listed a bunch of useful resources in this checklist that are there to help you understand what is that we are looking for when we go to that specific item. So if you're missing some piece of information, again, just don't hesitate to ask. Okay, the week of creation review has passed, everything is in place. We have done our part behind the curtains and you have done yours. And now the project is actually created. You will get a PMI page for your project or a website if you request it. We'll do all that we need to do in our internal database, so that's working. We will send the committer paperwork to committers, and we will ask the webmaster team to start the project provisioning phase. Please notice that we do not allocate project resources until at least one committer has completed the entire paperwork flow, okay? So please, when you receive this email, you will have to receive something in your email. If you don't, reach out directly to us and complete this as soon as possible so your project starts working, right? At this point, we will ask you, according to the new and updated IP due diligence process, to list all of your project repositories, the ones that you have, the ones that you need to be created. And yeah, at that point, all the interaction with the IT team will happen through this initial GitLab ticket. After the project has been created and is ready to start its incubation phase, all the requests for infrastructure changes will have to go through Eclipse Foundation help desk. Okay, once you have listed all of the repositories that you need or that you have, you will, the IT team will support you into transferring your code or repositories to the foundation. Let us know when you're ready. We'll wait that you give us the okay, because as I don't know if someone participated to the IP due diligence update, but we did have recently a situation where the project wasn't ready. It was surprised by how fast we were acting, right? So now we will wait, we'll let you know, and we'll communicate with you a little bit better in this part so you're not surprised by how fast and efficient we are. And once you're done, basically you can check in your code, and you can start working as an Eclipse open source project while our IP team does their very hard work, but you won't see any of this. So you will get an IP check of all the core content that you are checking in, but in the meantime, you can still keep working, okay? So that won't hold you back. You can start right away after the project has been provisioned. Is anyone here from a specification project? No, okay. There is only a slight difference, but I guess, well, it's in the slides. There is some ballot, some voting requirement added. Yeah? Okay, good. So the only difference with the process is that we need to notify the specification committee when you propose a project that includes the implementation of a specification. And during the creation review, we have to wait for this ballot result that the specification committee actually approves the creation of the project. So there is an important part there that is not just EMO and PMC, but it also includes the specification committee. Good. We are at the project management infrastructure that we provide for your project. This is going to be really fast, but I just wanted to let you know that when your project is created, you get this web page for your project in the PMI, which has some project metadata. This project metadata might not seem important, but it drives some of the processes and systems internally. So we do encourage you to keep that page up to date and in sync with, for example, your GitHub releases. We need you to do some editing there and make sure that everything is accounted for, do the project planning, add the releases that you're planning to do. So at some point, if we need to check that something is working the way it's supposed to, we have all the information there. Good. So now you're a committer. So either, in this case, let's assume you are a new committer that was added to the project when the project was created. Now you have to start behaving as a committer. You have a huge responsibility, right? So you completed your paperwork, and you are the one that have access to project resources. You decide what gets written in the project. So you need to make sure that the contributions are accepted, right? You need to make sure to interact with your contributors, and you need to make sure that these contributors have an ECA signed agreement. ECA stands for Eclipse Contributor Agreement. It's a huge deal. It's there to protect you and your project. It confirms that the contributor agrees to comply with the developer certificate of origin, which means I wrote the code, I am agreeing to the license of this project, and I am agreeing that my contribution will stay in the open since the moment I bring it to your project, okay? We have installed some hooks to help you do that. So GitHub and GitLab will warn you if the ECA is missing, and if you have any doubts about code provenance, or if you receive a larger contribution, more than 1,000 lines of code, please engage with the IP team and make sure that everything is okay, right? Also, as a committer, you have the responsibility to run committer elections. Like I said before, it's not because someone works for an organization that you want to be friends with, or that it's your organization, or that's sponsoring your project somehow. That is not merit enough to become a committer. You have to contribute to a project to become a committer, and you have to be able to prove that, right? So private conversations on Messenger, no, that doesn't work. Yeah, you have that power. So you have the power of electing the committers of your project, and you are also the first enforcer of the IP due diligence process of the Eclipse Foundation. So you have to make sure that all third-party libraries are vetted, and that all the contributions that seem funky or something that doesn't really, seems like it is on a good shape gets vetted by our IP team. Okay, you are now a fully functional Eclipse open source project. Now you have to maintain your open source project, and you have to still comply with the Eclipse development process. So this is the development cycle. Very simplified, we create the project, and then you need to spend some time planning the release cycle of your project, the development cycle. And this means that you have to define milestones, if you are going to have some, the release candidates, and the releases itself, right? Use your committer tools to do this. You need to spend some time doing that. And the way things used to work until a couple of years ago is that for each release of the project, you needed to engage with the EMO to schedule a release review ahead of time. What we've been doing lately is, so the EDP was modified in order to make this easier for you guys. And now, once you engage on a review, you have the capability as a project team to make any releases, any minor and major releases for a full calendar year. This doesn't mean that you are not going to be following the IP due diligence during a full year, and then when the review times comes, you will look into this. No, you can do it gradually, but you don't have to get IP team check, you don't have to get PMC approval, you don't have to send the email to the EMO, and these kind of things, okay? This is the process, but for specifications. So as you can see here, the specification committee has some participation in this process. It's a little different. The main difference is that you do have to schedule a review for every release you have, because you have this requirement to run a ballot for the specification committee to approve your release, to approve your plan review, and to approve your everything. Basically, a specification committee has to be a part of that process. So for specifications, I'm sorry, you don't get the year. Okay, so we've been talking a little bit more and more about progress reviews. This is not a new concept. It has been in the Eclipse handbook for some time now, but this is, I guess, the time when we are using it more often. And the idea is that if you don't schedule a release review once a year because you're maybe not following the Eclipse development process, we as the EMO or the PMC has the power to enforce a progress review upon you. This is not the idea, actually. So the idea is that we schedule a progress review on your behalf, and we help you get up to speed with the Eclipse development process is if you are not already following that, right? So progress review and release reviews only differ in timing. The progress review can be scheduled at any time and doesn't have to be specifically linked to any particular release. That's basically the difference. You need to continue managing IP at all times, and you get to create a progress review or a new release from the committer tools. I think this is okay. Yeah, well, just a comment here. You need to spend some time creating your release plan, and this is done by capturing the release records in the PMI. This is what we use to schedule the release reviews. So this is the diagram we're using in GitLab tickets to track the status of reviews. So it's very intuitive, in my opinion, but maybe because I know it. You create your release records, you get in touch with the EMO when your release is coming. We schedule the review, and then we help you get all the requirements in place. I will bother you, and I will annoy you to get PMC approval, to get your materials in a good shape. I will also bother internally our IP team to check whatever it is that you are doing. If I'm not, I will try to build your project. I will comment on that. So think of me as the annoying bee that wants to participate in each project and will come from 0 level into your project, and this is a great opportunity for you guys to lower all incoming barriers to your project contributions, okay? So that's what we're trying to do, and in the meantime, we'll do some checking about the brandings and the trademarks, and I'll make sure that the PMI is up to date and that we're following all the brand guidelines, and that you have in your repository all the mandatory and recommended files. Use your committer tools. In the committer tools, there are links to send notes to the PMC. There are links to go to our legal documentation generator. That will provide templates for most of the documents that we are asking you or inviting you to have in your main repositories, and that's there. And it will even provide an automated check in your listed repositories of the things that your project is missing. So it will help you through this process. Once that we complete this review period, which has a minimum of 1 week, your review is hopefully successfully completed, and you can publish all the releases that you need for a full calendar year. In a new year, a progress review or a release review will be required again, but what we're doing now is that when we're closing a ticket, we are already opening one for 1 year from now. So that will help you and us remember when the time comes. The idea is that once you go through this process once, the second time is just relax and enjoy the ride, because everything is pretty much check on your checklist. I will try to build your project again, but if it worked the first time, it will work again. And we will do the IP check of your contents, but yeah, once you go through this process once, it's easier to do it gradually. So maybe the first time it will take a little bit more of work from your side and my side, but the second time will be really intuitive and easy to follow along. I think that's pretty much all I have. This is how it changes. So I think I already went through this. These are, for example, the files that we are looking for: license, notice, code of conduct, contributing security. Notice that, for example, code of conduct and security are recommended files. We at the Eclipse Foundation already have a code of conduct that should cover all, for example, all the projects in our GitHub organization and our GitLab organization, but we still encourage you to put it in your main repositories because you have to look for it if you want to find it. And yeah, I think that's it. So I think we have some time for questions, five minutes. I will leave you the presentation and I will, final thoughts. Oh, this is important. The EDP is there to guide and protect your open source project and your community. It might seem like a complicated framework, but once you get to know it, it's really not. And we are there, and we are focusing our efforts to help you become a successful open source project. And please ask away, engage with us, send us an email, open a ticket, just comment on the issues that are already there. We'll be happy to help you. And that's it. Thank you.